For me, watching a Ghibli movie is a lucky dip, especially ones from recent years. You can get a really delightful movie that surprises you, or you can get a movie that leaves you feeling a bit underwhelmed. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya is Ghibli's latest film directed by Isao Takahata. So how does this movie stand in the leagues of Ghibli films? And does it single itself out from them? Let's find out in this review. So the movie is based on the old 10th century Japanese tale, Princess Kaguya. To say it's based on this is an understatement. The story has been adapted countless times in forms of anime and movies, but Ghibli's movie doesn't just base its story off the old story, it's very accurate. Even smaller details of the story are incorporated into the movie. Is this a bad thing? Absolutely not. Creating a close adaptation of a classic story doesn't devalue a movie at all, because let's face it, most movies are based on classic stories anyway, whether they like to admit it or not. This movie adapted the story very nicely, and it felt like a fresh retelling. It didn't feel like they were just feeding off the original at all. It was merely a basis for their movie and had many unique elements. One problem I did have was that they dragged plot points out way too much. Some sections of the story dragged out and I started to get restless. For example, the Five Princes section of the story was far too long for the point it was making, though this ended up being a minor problem and didn't take too much away from my viewing experience. One of the movie's biggest strengths and most prominent themes was the emotions and feelings of the princess character. I found this part of the story to be the best handled section of the movie. I will note that it didn't start out that great due to the story having to rush through the character's upbringing without any time to develop her, but after the story got into its rhythm, she really started to develop well. Her emotional state changed a lot throughout the film as she tackled various problems of her life, problems that can relate to anyone's life, not just that of a princess. She had to struggle through her unorthodox life to find what she wanted, to find happiness, despite everyone telling her different things. It's a story of a family who belong in the countryside trying to fit into rich society. It really pushes the theme of finding where you belong. It really wants you to think about where you truly want to be. Do you really want to spend your life chasing riches and gold, or can you find the same happiness without the extravagant lifestyle? It's a very interesting question asked in a very interesting way. It's interesting because it doesn't give us a clear answer. I found the characters to be a very interesting watch. There were a number of well-developed characters and some really great character scenes. A lot of characters came and left throughout the movie, some returning and some not. This made the movie feel much more grand in scale, but sometimes made them forgettable, though there were a solid cast of characters that maintained their roles throughout the movie. The main family were great. They all had interesting personalities that changed drastically throughout the movie. The dad, for instance, changes a lot. He almost goes full circle in his development. We see a wide range of emotions from his character, backed up by a really great performance. The princess was obviously the highlight of the show, and despite being a little irritating at points, her character was very enjoyable. Because of her condition, she was able to develop the most out of all the characters, and we see that throughout the movie. She's the character that receives the most emotional detail. The movie takes chunks of time just to focus on her emotional state, and it works really well with connecting us to her. The only main character I felt wasn't as well written was Sutamaru. And to call him a main character is quite an overstatement for most of the movie. He seems to drop out the movie as the story progresses, and then awkwardly joins back in later on in the movie. This felt very forced, as if they needed to push the obligatory Ghibli movie romance. They even throw in another romantic part at the end that again felt rushed and out of place. I felt like they should have left him back in the village with the rest of the village characters. So how does this story differ from other Ghibli films? Normally their films can be quite formulaic with repetitive characters and theme. Thankfully Princess Kaguya felt fresh. It didn't just feel like another Ghibli film. Fresh themes with a unique story structure makes Princess Kaguya stand out from all the other Ghibli movies. The animation is a very interesting topic in this movie. It was a bold decision to use a very different art style. At first glance and after a short watch it could be quite off-putting. It initially seems like a cheap cop-out, but as soon as you watch more of the film, the art style really starts to blossom. It looks like an old painting or storybook, perfect for the feel of the movie. The art style provides an extra layer of fantasy, making the story seem more like a tale. So does it work? For any other movie I'd say no, but for this movie absolutely. It works so well with the story and allows the characters to express their emotions so much more. For example, when the movie gets a bit darker and Princess Kaguya runs back to the village, the art style allows this to go wild, portraying her emotions through the animation. Though there were points in the movie that the animation did feel a little underwhelming. Sometimes backgrounds would have too much white and look too minimal. This did work in some occasions where it made the scenes look more mystical, but there were a few scenes that looked underproduced. That being said, the art style more than made up for this. The art style and animation really gave this movie its individuality, and the soundtrack had a similar impact. The OST was made up of classic Japanese sounding tracks and some of the usual Ghibli orchestral tracks. The soundtrack didn't shine out particularly, but definitely didn't go unnoticed. Most of the tracks stayed in the background to great effect. They used the tracks to mirror the emotion of the scenes. There were some really soft, beautiful tracks, really worth a listen. And there were some moments where the soundtrack outshone the rest of the film, like in the ending climax scene. It was a massive change from the rest of the tracks. They changed from using the usual slow, calm music to an upbeat track with new instruments and a faster pace, though it felt quite melancholy. This was one of the best parts of the scene. It really elevated the end of the movie. So how does this movie compare to other Ghibli films? I have to say, it's one of the studio's strongest films. With its bold style and interesting themes, they made this classic tale their own, and really told it in a unique way. So that being said, did it differentiate itself from other Ghibli films? Again, absolutely. It had a unique style and story structure that you don't see often in Ghibli films. Overall, it was a fantastic movie that I really enjoyed. It offers such a unique experience with its art style and story. I would absolutely recommend giving this film a watch. Another recent Ghibli film was The Wind Rises, that I also reviewed. You can click on the screen to check that out, or you can check out some different videos. If you enjoyed this video, please do click the like button and share it around. You can also subscribe to get notifications of new videos. So thank you very much for watching my review.